Hello, beloved. Jeanne Street, God-based medium, healer, and author. And I'm so happy that you are here. And today we are going to drop in with divine messages from heaven. And we're going to be talking all around quieting our mind. So recently, I have been led back to my first book. It's been kind of coming in my body, and possibly you can understand, like when you start to get signs from the divine that might not make full sense to you. They start coming in, and you start preparing yourself to, work with this message that's coming in. And we can assign meetings really easily because we're very busy. We all have past, we have things that we've been through, and we have current situations that we're in as well, which will play a role in how we are thinking, what habits are still on board, or what new habits we picked up, and what our belief systems are. So when we are moving through something really big in our lives and ready to move into the next iteration of ourselves, what we're going to find are those nudges are going to start coming in before we even enter that shift. And none of us really likes change. I don't know about you, but change is great, but then sometimes it's just really, really hard to move through it. Because we like the familiar stuff. We like sameness. We like comfort. And change is not always comfortable. It requires some new thinking, some new energy. I have a beautiful client who I work with, and dang, I just love her. She's really, really incredible, very gifted in her ability to commune with heaven, to, her medium gifts are just spot on. And every time we are, in session, deepening her connection to her gifts and her understanding of herself, she gets pretty angry with the amount that she's being asked by Spirit to do. And what that means and what that can look like is it can feel like a punishment, especially if we have some programming, some things that we've come into this life that we lived in that were against our truth. And it bumps up against us like, when is it going to be my time? When is it going to be easy? When is it going to be, things don't have to be so freaking hard? And I have to remind her, as I also remind myself, and I want to give this to you as well, this little yumminess, which is we are going to hit these edges, and it's up to us to change our mindset, to shift our mindset from this being a problem, this being hard, this being the worst, whatever it is, to I get to do this. I get to shift something that's keeping me in a place I don't want to be. So let's face it, every time we're going to lean into a growth, it is for our highest and best good. It is bringing us to a place that we don't know yet what it will look and feel like. So having our mind connected with our heart, having our mind tuned into the divine is going to help us, it's going to support us, it's going to open us to receiving the guidance from heaven, and the softness is going to help us to move through those, sticky transitions, those places where we might get stuck, or noticing the old patternings or belief system, and sometimes even moving through stuck trauma. So recently, this experience I had with God was, God was showing me we get stuck. He's like, as I was moving through my own things in my life, and I'm like, okay, so what is happening here? And I was on a walk, and I happened to be walking to the boat launch, which is right across the street, and just a nice place to go sit and meditate. And there's a sign there, and he's like, see the sign? And the sign is a parking sign, no parking. And I started laughing. I'm like, I see the sign. And, the teaching is don't park in the place you don't want to be. But it's very easy for us to get stuck in pain, to be in a loop of sameness, to swim in the same kind of worry, doubt, and fear. And once we change our mindset, which there's a few easy steps, and I'm gonna lean us into it, we can move out of that parking spot. We can back out and we can start again. But so often, life presents some big things to move through, some really big things to move through. And we might not be equipped in the moment as we're moving through the massive amount of emotions, these big emotions that we must release as we're transcending something, moving through it to become that new version of us. And there's this realization of, oh, I can't stay here anymore. I can't stay in the same patterning. I can't stay in the same way that I've been living. Something must change here. Whether that be your location, it could be simple, like, a mindset shift. It could be changing your outfit. It could be changing the way you're showing up in the world. It could be any one of those things or more, right? So we know once we start leaning in with God, we know when we're quiet, we can start hearing those love tones again. But we're conditioned to hear the negative, and we're patterned to, right? I mean, there's all this rhetoric that's going on, and this truth about how we are fed certain things over and over and over to program us to think negatively. I literally just watched this person talk about movies, especially I'll say children's movies. I won't say the name of the company, but famous children's movies that came out, in the 70s, probably early 60s. I'm not even sure when the first one came out. But the premises of these children's movies and cartoon were all the characters, all the girls in the movies didn't have a mom. Some way, some shape or form, the mom was died or not in the scene, or a stepmom that was not nice, evil. So this programs girls to be abandoned by watching these movies, by seeing them over and over and over and over, because that's what children do. They watch over and over and over, to see this scenario of, hey, mom's either absent or mom's not good, and so it builds a storyline inside of you to believe that you don't have what you need to move forward, that you need some Prince Charming, that you need some man, you need something on the outside to move you forward because you can't do it alone. And I was like, mind blown, right? So here we are in this brand new paradigm, this brand new age, the age of Aquarius, the age of the healer. This is the place where love is coming in the rise. And what's based in fear, what's based in lies, is blowing up. And we are literally seeing it in real time. We're seeing this transition from the old, the patriarchy. We're seeing things crumble. We're seeing horrific things. And this is the rise of the love. This is the rise of the love, of what's based in love, or what needs to be based in love, coming forward. This is why there's so many more healers in the world, so many more people that are attuning their gifts to the divine and sharing their gifts, their art with the world, because they're hearing this. They're inside of their being and they're noticing, hey, I'm coming in. There's something different here. There's something new. There's something more joyful. And that's what I want to share with you today about the first principle in The Goddess You, my very first book. It's almost 10 years old, guys. Can you believe it? So the very first principle that my angels led me to understand about living in soul alignment was, you must quiet your mind. You must mind your mind. And the Bible tells us to mind our thoughts, to align our thoughts to God. And we cannot do this if we are not having scripture, if we are not praying, if we're not constantly in relationship with the divine. Why is that? because the world is a big, wide, messy web and vying for your attention. Your cell phone, the busyness of the world, the news, it's all going to try to take us away from minding our thoughts. So minding our thoughts is a really important process of aligning to our highest soul self, to knowing and really profoundly leaning in with God, with what our purpose is, why we are here. And there is no mistake that you are here at this time during this changeover. You were called. Your name was written in the stars. I highly believe and know with all of me that that's why you're here. And that's why you even found this episode and you're listening, because you're meant to be here. End of story. So where do we begin? Where do we begin with quieting our mind, with minding our thoughts, with attuning our mind with our heart? So the brain, I want to say this one more thing. Hold on. This thought just came in. I learned this other really cool thing about neuroplasticity and the brain. So the brain is the brain, right? It is a functioning physical thing, different than the mind. The mind is energetic. The mind are your thoughts, and they carry a frequency. Your brain is, God gave us this beautiful thing of a brain in our physical body. It is wired to remember. We can change, that's neuroplasticity. We can change the wiring in our brain by consciously choosing new thoughts, right? So there's the energy, conscious in your heart, conscious in your thoughts, to create a higher vibrational thought, to shift from where you are, to create new patterns and new habits. Because everything is moving all the time, right? Well, you come into this physical form with the knowing of your soul. You know your truth. You know who you are. And you begin to be shaped by your surroundings, by the family members and the people that come into your field, and the TVs and the things that you're taking in, right? So our children become part of the environment that they're living in. You became part of the environment you were living in. And the miracle is that you can change by shifting your thoughts, by shifting your energy, change your environment. So you do not have to carry the same environment patterning if you choose not to. This is what the premise of healing is based on, right? Is the decision to move through something differently, to enter into an agreement of love, to be one with love, so there's no separation. We're more complicated human beings. We're very complicated. We like our patterns sometimes. We even speak over them. We speak life into them. It's basically a spell we place over ourselves, right? By saying something like, I can't do that. I'm not made for that. I don't know how. So whatever those thought patterns that are in, that have been wired or told to us, and we learn to repeat them, those become the shame, the thing where we're stuck in that parking space. Like God said, we're not meant to be stuck there, repeating those same negative thoughts. We're meant to be in a new place. We're meant to be where He's brought us into. So that beginning phase of your life, the beginning phase of where we were, is a teachable, right? It moves us into our mastery, right? So we go through the process of mastering some really big skills in this life. We get a PhD in the shit you've lived in, like the things that you've moved through. It's just the fact, right? That's a beautiful thing, because what you are moving through, you are learning from, and you will pass on to someone else. You will pass it on. You will lean in some way, shape, or form to guide another, specifically around what you've lived in. It's really beautiful. That's why we lean in with certain authors and we're like, how does she know how I feel deeply inside? Well, like you, she's had some life experiences, or like you, he also had life experiences, and he was able to transform his experience into a written word, or maybe transform it into some art or to a song, right? Transform it into something, a class. So this is why we're going to move into quieting our mind, because your greatest gift is you. Your greatest gift is becoming you. All of you is loving who you are and like just allowing it to be. Allowing you to be who you are without trying to change, shift, or deny yourself. So we want to start leaning in when we want to quiet our mind with our breath. And what we can look at from the Bible, from the teachings that came to us through Jesus, is God used breath to breathe life into us. So life is breath. And being able to be with our breath, be one with our breath, is going to move us into our heart center. It's going to bring us into our body. So when I say one with our breath, it can seem like, well, how do I do that, right? A lot of people will be like, well, I don't know, Jeannie, I can't meditate. I can't meditate. I've heard this a gazillion million times. And guess what? You're a breathing, living human being, and you can do a walking meditation. All you need is to focus on the breath, move from the thought into the body. And we use our senses to do this. So I'm going to invite you, if you can, if it's safe for you, meaning you're not driving or, someplace public. I don't want you to be putting yourself in danger here. If you can close your eyes, go ahead and do so. But if you're out and about in the world, you keep your eyes open. And what we're going to do is we're going to take an inhalation through our nose. And with that inhalation, we're going to count, and we're going to follow the breath all the way into our body when we count. So we're going to take the breath in like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Holding it all the way in your belly. Pausing for 5. And then you're going to exhale the same through your nose or through your mouth, whichever is more comfortable. And you're going to count as well. 4, 3, 2, 1. Breath is on the outside. We call this a cycle breath. So you're going to cycle it in. So you're going to pause on the outside for 5, breathe in for 5, hold it in your belly for 5, and exhale to 5. So you're basically making a square box, and you're cycling the breath all around. This is going to move you from your head to your body. Counting is also going to change up the patterning. It's going to set the signal. Once you start doing it, your body's going to be like, oh, it's time to relax. It's an anxiety buster. So it brings us into the belly, brings us into the body. The next part of it is to up the count, to bring the count to a 10, to become a little bit more comfortable with expanding the chest and the lungs, to holding more breath in your body and exhaling very slow to that count of 10. So it's giving a longevity to your body holding oxygen in. So what's going to happen next once you do this next level and increase the amount of oxygen that you're bringing in is your body's going to begin to be flooded with brand new energy. It's going to just move through your bloodstream. It's going to enliven your cells, and you're going to feel uplifted. That's it. That's the first step in quieting our mind, is learning how to do the cycle breath. I recommend doing the cycle breath for the count of 5 for at least a couple of weeks, because we really want to get used to what it feels like to be in that body and be in that familiar zone, to hold it and release it. And I also suggest when I start working with clients is that they do it at least 3 times a day. So you're going to do like 3 rounds, 3 times a day to get your body used to it in the first week. The next week, you're going to build it up and do it a little bit more. Go to 5 times a day. And then when you're getting to the next week is when you can start doing it to the count of 10, going back to the 3 times a day, noticing how does that feel? How does it feel to be in my body? And if you like, keep it up to the 5 times a day. Absolutely. This is going to be your way of moving through the day, of moving from the chaotic thoughts, disrupting them, and bringing the breath in to ask the body to be in communion with God, to be like, ooh, this feels sticky. This feels hard. Maybe there's too many people around right now, and I need to settle into my body because I'm going to disassociate. So let me bring this breath in. This is key for shifting everything within us. And this is where we have to start. If we start changing habits, if we start, paying attention to something on the outside, what will happen is the brain is going to be like, hey, that's familiar. Let me keep that up. It's going to wire in hard and be like, this is what I'm used to. But when we start with the breath, it's going to start softening the thought system. And literally those patterns are going to just naturally start to buck up against us and be like, hey, this is new. And we're going to be like, yeah, this is good, right? Because our new thought system is, I'm safe. I'm the safe person in this relationship. My thoughts, I'm taking over. I've got you. That's the very, very first step. Okay, so I want to leave us here today because there is a next level, but I'm going to do a whole nother episode on it because even though it's part of the first chapter in the God issue and quieting your mind, I just feel like I want to stay with the breath and expand upon it so that you understand the depth, because I think even for me in the beginning, I didn't realize the importance of how I was breathing. I didn't realize the importance of quieting down to be in the zone of that cycle breath. I use it so often now, and it literally changes the whole dynamic of, like, if you're in a stressful situation, it brings it right down. So like during a really hard time, my mom was in the hospital in the beginning of the year, you guys, and it was really, really hard. There was a lot going on, and I felt very triggered, and to stay with myself so that I wasn't a walking, trigger, walking around like, I don't know about you, but like felt like my armor was down. I felt like everything was coming at me. And I wanted to stay really in my truth. I had to do the cycle breathing. So I would, walk out of the room. I'd go to the bathroom. I would do what I needed to do to get in a space where I could drop in, and then I could start again. And that's the whole point, is like, we get to start again, even with the people that push our buttons, even when we feel triggered, even when things are really hard or grief is like ginormous and we don't have our sight on what's happening next. The breath will hold us. Cycle breathing will hold us, and we will feel God. And that is the miracle. All right. I would love to hear from you when you start doing this cycle breath, what things you noticed, what came up for you, how did you feel? If you are an anxious person, if you start to settle in, I would like to know. Or if it made you feel, more heightened, I'd love to know, because your senses, your heavenly senses, your earthly senses will start to vibrate higher. And that is a very common thing. And these are the things that we work out and understand and work with inside of the sanctuary, my group. But I would love for you to know that you can lean in here, leave me a comment below, and I will answer it. And I hope that you have a most spectacular day. God bless you. Oh my goodness, my love. Now that was a beautiful and sacred transmission. I hope that you received exactly what you needed to today. If you didn't already, I invite you into your journal when you have a chance to write down and reflect on the things that landed with you today. This really helps the message, the guidance, and the support move through your being. Also, be sure to list out if you felt your angels, guides, or departed loved ones with you. Write these things down. Again, it becomes an imprint of love that grows and brings us forward. Until the next time, beloved, God bless you and have a beautiful day.